Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
Yep. So, moving on from fake reviews. So Will Reynolds wrote.
But also,
Yes?
we're also in the medical space here. So I'll start with the sort of
Sure. Okay.
3B article first, which is very much related. So Glenn Alsop of Viper Chill had a post on social. He actually said he hasn't published this anywhere on his website or anything like that, but he did a major analysis of 1,000 keywords for medical symptoms, essentially, and found something that as somebody who works with a lot of healthcare organizations, and I do a ton of keyword research, like it's probably the sort of the plurality of my time in terms of sort of day-to-day tasks. He found that basically the same 10 websites are ranking for every single medical symptom query, no matter what it was. And some of these make a lot of sense to me as well as I'm doing my keyword research. Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Penn Medicine. A lot of these guys are very well-respected medical organizations. They have great content libraries. They have a ton of links pointing at their content. That all makes sense. Then there's also basically there are the Quoras and the Reddits, and to some extent the WebMD content is, I think, considerably lower quality, that are also showing up for a lot of these very much your life type of queries. And it's almost impossible for any other healthcare brand to sort of break through into this sort of cabal of medical sites. I'm not saying they're colluding with each other, but they're basically entrenched at the top of every informational query for them. Yeah, exactly. Totally. Like, no matter how great your content is, it's not going to break these 10 sites for informational queries. And so I thought that was a really interesting sort of. I hope he releases even more data about this over time, because I do think it's pretty interesting that the extent to which Quora and Reddit are now showing up for these kinds of searches. And as he points out, a lot of less than savory sort of medical or quasi-medical players are latching onto essentially a barnacle SEO tactic of being the top rated comment on the post from Quora that's ranking or the post from Reddit that's ranking. And who knows how good or not the service or product they're promoting really is. So it's just a kind of an illustration of segueing into the other topic we want to talk about, of the sort of sea of sameness mindset, I guess, that Google's results seem to reward these days, right? So, there is really no difference between the Mayo Clinic sort of answer and the Cleveland Clinic answer and these really great sites, right? They all follow a pretty consistent formula, and that's one of the ways that they've been able to scale their content libraries so significantly, is they probably have really clear editorial guidelines of, like, if you're writing about a symptom, this is the formula you follow. And guess what? They have great brand authority. Google loves whatever their formula that they've chosen is, and so that's why they always rank. And so Will Reynolds from Sierra Interactive wrote a post saying, he had a piece of content about the best way to write an SEO RFP or something like that, and Sear was ranking second or third with that content, but he was like, this is basically crap content. It doesn't represent our brand well. Even though it's ranking really well, it's not adding value to the SEO community. I'm going to torch this post, and I'm going to rewrite it in such a way that I'm proud of it, that I would actually want to put promotional dollars behind it, and we're going to see how that does. And basically what he found is, first of all, I thought his process was really interesting. He asked ChatGPT first, like, how would you write this post? And he basically said, if your post can't do any better than that, if the outline and the content that you've written, it seems like it's on par with what ChatGPT can spit out, you probably should rethink the post, which I think is a really interesting kind of way to look at this. So he was like, this post sucks, and I'm gonna totally redo it. Their rankings dropped from, I think, 3rd to 10th temporarily. And then, because he was actually proud of the content, he put a promotional budget behind it. That promotional budget led them to recoup all the rankings they've lost, and now they're actually creating value with the content that they put out there. So I think that's kind of an interesting model of, potentially using ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. If you think you're able to rank for a post, right, maybe have ChatGPT or Gemini create most of the posts. I do think it should be human edited, no matter what your subject. See if you're going to rank, and then if you do rank, put real time and energy into a much better version of that content for something that will stick around and actually lead to customers. So I just thought that was a really interesting sort of arc. And the flip side of that is, if you're in the medical space, you probably can't do that for informational query, no matter how great that content is that you write. So there is this sort of brand barrier. I'm sure it exists in other industries, where a smaller site just cannot break through these sort of major players in a very competitive category like healthcare. So
I wonder if they could. I mean, yes, John Hopkins and Cleveland Clinic. I mean, it's sort of trusted mediocrity. I've discussed this before on the show. I signed up as a doctor on Medscape so that I could get access to real research, real conversations that go beyond what the common wisdom in medicine, which is what's at it's just at the Cleveland Clinic, or they're not bad, they're just 101 stuff. And when you have a condition, you don't want 101 stuff. You want 101, 201, 301, 401. And at some point you call in the reinforcements and you send a research paper over to your doctor friend and you say, what does this say? Right. But
well, you could also just ask Claude or something like that. But
you could, but the point is that there is a need for something beyond trusted mediocrity in medicine. And I'm wondering if you could bring the expertise to bear and the promotional skills to bear, whether or not you could achieve some prominence. So I charge you with this job, David.
I think I actually had this conversation with one of my clients yesterday. I do think it's possible in a specific discipline, right? If you want to be the best pancreatic cancer provider in the world, right, and you went super deep on one sort of silo, I think you absolutely could probably break into this cabal. But if you're trying to do that across every, all 1,000 symptoms that Glenn's looking at, just no organization has the resources to do that outside of these brands that have already been investing in it for 10, 15 years. So.
Well, this is symptomatic of two things, kind of a much larger phenomenon with Google, which is Google is rewarding brands. It's got, the high domain authority, its favorite brands. These are the sites getting traffic. Glenn Alsop has documented that across different domains. And, I've lost the second point now.
I would also say Seer Interactive is the equivalent of the Mayo Clinic in the SEO content industry, right? It's a very trusted website. It's been around for a long time. It has a lot of links pointing to it. So, to Mike's point, and Will's earlier post was sort of trusted mediocrity, right? They follow the formula that they give clients. They leverage their own domain strength, and they were ranking number 3. So.
Well, one of the points he makes is sort of take a more holistic view of how to promote content and how to think about content, use other channels. Don't just think exclusively about SEO. But I mean, his methodology, I agree, is really interesting, but it seems to fly in the face of all the other kind of market incentives and forces, which is like his is kind of a more artisanal approach or a more time intensive approach, and people are just not going to do that for the most part. I mean, they're going to do the good enough version, right? I mean, there's an emphasis on volume and efficiency and time savings, and all these AI tools kind of go in the direction of mediocrity. I mean, good enough, right? Mediocrity is too strong a word perhaps, but sort of crossing some threshold of quality to get visibility. You're just looking to get visibility.
But I think to Will's point, though, he's looking at where should I be making the investment, right? He gives the example of, hey, ranking number 1 for SEO company just brought in a bunch of garbage leads, right? So there's no reason to try to rank for all these, horizontal SEO terms. But if he puts himself in the mindset of his ideal customer, which is a VP of marketing or something, trying to write an SEO RFP, okay, great. How do I get in front of this person? I'm going to invest in the content that my particular audience is likely to be searching for, even if there's far lower search volume according to Search Console or Keyword Planner or any of these tools. So.
Right. And the irony
so I think
of that
picking and choosing your topical investment is where you really need to be. Use use ChatGPT for the 80%, and see what the cat brings in, and really put your human resources into the 20% where the leads are likely to convert.
The irony is that's what Google is saying for people to do, write for your audience, write for your target audience. But they're not necessarily rewarding that. I mean, if they're rewarding Forbes and they're rewarding these sort of designated brands, regardless of what the content is, and they've created their own problem, because with the affiliate spam, or the I forget what they call it, the sort of reputation. Barry Schwartz had a term. I don't know if he originated it, but the idea of these sites that are putting in affiliate links and publishing content that has nothing to do with their main, mission.
Right.
I mean, Google has created that incentive to profit off of the domain strength. So they're not their message, I think, may be a good one, right for people. But their execution is not necessarily delivering against that objective, and by positioning, by giving so much attention to Quora and Reddit, those sites are going to be infected by spam inevitably. I mean, they already are.
They already are, right?
They already are.
That. Yeah.
I mean, Quora in particular, but Reddit for sure. I mean, and there's probably no way for the moderators at Reddit to catch all of it, just because of the scale of the whole thing. All right. Any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience this week?
I was just on Conversion Cast with Aaron and
Aaron Wyke from Lead
Aaron
Furno.
Wyke from Lead Furno, thank you. And I am an investor in the company, so I have a vested interest. But it was one of the more fun interviews I've had in a long time. Aaron did a great job of helping me describe what Near Media is currently doing, and put it in the context of practical advice and what you can learn from it. So it was a great interview. It's a half hour, and I just think if you're curious about what we are doing, it's sort of top level stuff.
Because you won't hear it directly from us.
Well, we do have that problem.
At least you can read it on our website now. We found
that
page up a month ago.
I'll link to that podcast in the newsletter this week.
Right. And it was very, very fun and helpful, and it was a great time for me. And Aaron always does great work with the software, but he's doing really great work with his Conversion Cast podcast as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we'll call you Dr. Blumenthal from now on.
All of your Medscape readings. Yeah. Your Professor Maps has been upgraded to PhD. So.
Right.
Yeah. All
right. So that brings to a close another week at the Near Memo, and thanks for listening. Tell your friends about it, and we will see you. I think next week we're going to have Dana DiTomaso on, and so that should be an interesting one to tune in for. So show up for that, and we'll see you then.
Yeah. So just a note, Greg, I know you currently are having trouble with Yelp finding roofers and siders and all that sort of stuff. When you get to be my age, then you have the different kinds of problems, and your needs change dramatically. So Yelp is no longer capable of solving your problems. So your search profile will change. So
I'm not that far away from you, Mike.
All right.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.